Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to No Filter Gen Z. I'm here with Fadana and Lydia again. Welcome back to the show, guys. You're kind of like the reoccurring, almost co-host at this point, but I'm glad to have you guys back. Before we get into the topics of today, I want to just go over real quick the hurricane that we just had, because we all live in Florida here, and we had Hurricane Helene. How did you guys feel about it? Are you okay? What's going on? Fadana first.
Honestly, the day before the hurricane, I was out at a restaurant partying like a typical Floridian. Had a hurricane party,
That's kind of what we
yes.
do in Florida, you know?
Yeah, so I mean, we're all alive, we're fine. I mean, there's minor flooding here and there and some lost power. I lost power at my place, but we're all doing fine. Thank you, Jesus,
Exactly.
honestly, you
Good.
know.
Yeah, how about you, Lydia?
Well, yeah, we were fine. We are as far as like location wise, we never do get it bad, even like with like Hurricane Ian a few years ago. Like we lost power maybe for a couple hours. I wasn't even here, but we had heard from neighbors. But other than that, there's flooding like, you know, in different cities next to us. But yeah, we fared okay. It was just some wind and some rain,
Good.
but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
when it made landfall, it was like a Category 4. So I hope Tallahassee's doing okay. We'll be praying for them. And I did see some like St. Petersburg and the islands, like where there's the oceans right there. There's pretty bad flooding, but for the most part, where we are is okay. So we'll just be praying for the people that lost their houses. Like that's the worst part of all this is like when your house gets flooded and then you don't know what to do. So keep them in your prayers. But today we're going to go back into the election stuff because we're under 40 days until the election. Like this is coming quick. But what we don't realize is actually it's starting right now because mail-in voting's a thing. Like it is a thing that you people are starting to do already in like a bunch of the swing states, Pennsylvania. So just to get started, I guess because we're so close, what is your guys' like last bid to undecided voters on what they should do going into the election since it's so close and since there's so many things coming from both sides? Lydia first.
Well, I would say first look at as far as like the moderate candidates, like for instance, like RFK, like he's like middle of the line kind of candidate when he was running, and I think for him to endorse Trump says a lot.
Mm,
And I think you should definitely, if you're like in the middle and you're undecided, I definitely would look at those people that they have already endorsed, like Tulsi Gabbard too. Like she used to be a Democrat, she used to be a chairperson of the DNC, and now she's like independent and now she endorsed Donald Trump. And I think that's definitely important to pay attention to those people because that's a huge indicator of just the political tide and what's going on. Because it's so extreme on the other side that you really have to take into consideration just like what that could mean if you would vote for something or someone like that. You
yeah.
vote for that entire regime, so to speak.
Yeah,
But
Charlie Kirk said it well. He said that you're not voting for Trump if you vote for Trump. You're voting for the 5,000
yeah,
people he's hiring to bring into the White House and run the
yep,
government. And so what I see is when there's someone that's undecided, it's like, who don't look at the actual personalities of the people. Look at which one do you think could bring in a better team to fix the country and really like do what it's supposed to do in the government. So Fidana, what do you think about undecided voters at this point?
Honestly, I would let them think back on when Trump was president and how the economy was. So that's definitely something I would definitely put in their mind to start thinking critically. We all know Trump has been president before and what he's capable of doing. We have seen Kamala be VP and we have seen her works and what she has done, honestly. So just compare the two and say, do you want another 4 year Kamala or do you want another 4 year of Trump? I think, to be honest with you, it's a no-brainer. But you can't make up people's mind for them. They gotta come to the result themselves for them to realize, okay, this was how it was whenever Donald Trump was president, and this is currently this administration and what they're doing to our country. So that's literally what I would have them to start thinking critically, making that move.
Yeah, and it is a different election because we've seen both administrations. We've seen Kamala and Biden's what they wanted to do and what they ended up doing to our country, and then we've seen 4 years of Trump, like you said. So it's a lot easier to look back and see, was I better off 4 years ago or was I better off today? Like that's the decision. And in my opinion, it is a no-brainer, like you said. But the polls are all so close. It looks like in every swing state, it's almost 50-50. So I just want to ask, like, I don't know who's surveying, who is being asked, but do you guys believe these polls? Do you think they're accurate of what the election will be like, Lydia?
I would definitely say there is, depending on where you get your source, because I've been seeing that too, and the media is definitely biased in general. So I definitely would be careful because it's funny, depending on the news station, sometimes like there is like drastic differences. But I do feel like with this election, I feel like they are relatively pretty close. I mean, there are like variations and differences between like where you're getting your information, but I definitely would not believe everything you see or hear because it's totally not accurate, especially also statewide. You look at
Yeah.
like, how people feel statewide, because that's like, that's a national poll. When you look at like the state wide, like there could be like definitely differences there too that definitely you should be paying attention to.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, what we saw in 2016 was people, like the polls especially showed Hillary Clinton was more than people thought. And it's almost a way to discourage Republicans from voting or whichever side it's going to. So that's why I say, like, we got to be careful looking at those on the news because they could make it look like Kamala is way higher than we think going into the election. It's like, oh, well, might as well not vote like what happened in 2020. So, Fadana, do you think these are accurate or what do you think is going on?
To be honest with you, just like I would second what Lydia said, I would say they are pretty accurate. There might be a little bit bias here and there, like they might make it seem like, Kamala is a very popular VP or a Democrat nominee, because she wasn't nominated by the Democrat. They just put her in there.
Well, that's
To
why
be
that's why it's so hard for me to believe that she is this close because no one ever voted for her to get there. So that's like why it makes me think like that.
Oh, why you think they might be tweaking it a little bit?
Yeah.
There could be that possibility, but to be honest with you, with the mainstream media, like, well, the left wing media, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
with the way that they always bring up propaganda against Trump and all the disaster that they always try to make people who are right wing,
Mm-hmm.
and their news station, they're gonna try to make it seem like Kamala is going to win this election,
Yeah,
so.
and it probably
Um,
will be like that on both sides too. Like on
right.
a more right leaning network, it'll
Right.
probably be vice
Like on
versa.
Fox News, yeah, it'll
Yeah.
probably be like, okay, Trump is gonna win it. But I think we just have to wait for November 5th to see what really goes down, to see like how the American people show up. I mean, the true patriots, see how they show up to vote, because we really need the patriots to really show up.
Yeah. I have a question for you guys. Like, are you voting? How are you voting? Are you gonna vote by mail in or early or on the day?
I personally, I'm voting on the day because I'll be here. So like, why not? Because I know that's hard, especially for people that are like going on trips or like they have other obligations or they're in the military. You know what I mean? And so I think there's a lot of stipulations there. But yeah, I definitely am voting in person because this is my first general election
Me
that I've
too.
ever voted. So I feel like it's kind of like I kind of have to. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of I'm very excited. So I kind of want to have the full experience.
Yeah.
But
How about
yeah.
you, Fadana?
Honestly, I'm probably gonna do early voting because I know the day of election is there's gonna be a massive amount of people, and if one thing about me is I try to avoid the crowds, and so I'm not a crowd person. So knowing me, I'll probably go in and vote early, and then that way, the day of election, I'll probably be like volunteering
Yeah,
the
that's
day of
good.
election and the different tents. So we'll see. But I definitely want to avoid the crowd because I know people can get crazy.
Yeah, and so I ask because I just don't know why we're like early voting makes sense to me because of that reason, and because since election day is not a federal national holiday, then of course people might be busy that day, which I think it should be a holiday, so that everyone can go out and vote. But because of that, it makes sense of early voting. But the mail-in stuff doesn't make sense to me. We brought it in 2020 because of COVID, because of this big pandemic where people had to stay in, right? But we're not there anymore. And voting by mail is more popular than it was in 2020 now. So why is this? Why, Lydia?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's like a convenience thing. I don't know if people are like, oh, I just don't feel like going out. But like, I feel like with the mail-in, I mean, we kind of saw it like with the voter fraud, just that kind of thing. I mean, that's so much more like susceptible to happen,
Yeah.
obviously, since things are being mailed, so things can be altered, things can be changed. The vote that you place could be completely
And
different,
that's not a
over a
conspiracy
day.
theory either. That's just like
No,
logic because when you're if you're
yeah,
mailing something, things get lost all the time. And if you have the
exactly.
wrong person mailing it, they're going to, want to tamper with the results. So like
Yeah,
I don't
it's only
understand.
normal to think. Yeah, for
But
No,
sure.
I definitely agree with you guys. And even with the melon, like the only people who should probably be receiving the melon is like college students who probably aren't there locally to vote. Then I would definitely say maybe the college
Or
kids. But other than
military.
and
that,
then
yeah,
military, yeah.
or military. But
And
other
then
than
and then
that, I don't.
also people that are like disabled, not able to go. But everyone else, I feel
Exactly.
like they should have to go and
Right.
fulfill their duty and vote because
Right.
how are we supposed to prevent the fraud if it's such a large scale thing now?
Yeah,
Right. Right.
it's so
It's
true.
something for them to think about and make a tweak in the law. It's just it's not right, honestly. And a
But
lot
would
of people,
they? Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, I
would they
mean,
would they
if it
really want
worked
to?
in 2020, why wouldn't they want to do it again, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'd say.
It's
But
crazy. It's really crazy.
and then I've heard like an opinion on this from someone at college. They said they like to read what's on the ballot before, and they can do that by voting by mail. But in my mind, I'm like, they have sample ballots on all of the
That's
county
what I'm saying.
websites for you to look at the ballot before. So that
Yeah.
I mean that's like an easy fix to that. So I don't know if that should be the reason to mail in vote. And I still like the idea that okay, if you want to get your ballot in advance, then bring it in and drop it off. Don't mail it because that's scary. I wouldn't trust my own ballot to get there. So I'm voting on the day just to be safe and it also is my first election too. So I want to have that presidential election experience. But we do you guys think since we're talking about fraud, do you think this election will be any different than 2020? Will it be a fair and free election, Fadana?
Honestly, that's the hope. I think Americans, at this point, they're tired. They have seen the debates, and now October the 1st, we're going to see the VP debates and
Mm-hmm.
see how that goes, honestly. So we're just honestly all crossing our fingers and hoping for the best, honestly. But if it's not fair, then I definitely know there are people who are not going to sit there and tolerate it. So I would definitely say that this election really needs to be fair because we just can't afford to go into World War III, and the Patriots, the hardcore Patriots, they're not gonna sit here and take another 4 years of this nonsense.
Yeah. What do you think, Lydia?
I definitely think if anything, I mean, honestly, I feel like at the end of the day, it to an extent I feel like voter fraud will still happen, but I'd like to hope and believe that it won't happen to the level that it did in 2020. I mean, we can always hope for the best, prepare for the worst, but at the same time, like our own government, is also biased in that way. So, like, if
Yeah.
something were to really be going on, would they actually, take the precautions to prevent something like that? I don't know. I mean, there's good people that are rising up in that and really trying to fight against that.
Yeah.
As you said, the patriots, the people, even the average citizen that wants to stand up for this nonsense,
Yeah, there's more and more volunteers that want to go out this time because they're
Yeah.
scared of anything happening or they're skeptical. And then I also saw the Republican, the RNC. Now that Laura Trump is the co-chair, she put out a bunch of, or they're going to put out a bunch of election integrity officials, they call them, to go out and make sure there's no fraud. But my
That's
thing
good.
is, yes, that's good for election day,
Mhm.
but we're still looking at like the whole mail-in voting thing. It's hard to really regulate that and make sure nothing's happening. So that's why I bring that up. But what about the illegal votes? I mean, that's something I'm scared of personally. I know the border's wide open and people are getting IDs and all you need to vote in some states is an ID. So, Fadana, do you think that's going to be an issue?
I just can't believe in some states that all you would need is an ID. That's like a federal offense. Like the only people who should be able to vote is a citizen of that country. It just
Yeah,
doesn't
and that's
make
the
any
law
sense for,
too.
yeah, for illegal immigrants to be voting. Like you're not an American citizen. It's a no brainer, honestly. Like, this is common sense. This isn't even, this shouldn't be something that we should be debating
I know.
upon. That should be like something that them coming in knowing that, hey, you don't have that right yet because you're not an
Yeah,
American
if you want to
citizen.
vote, then become a citizen, and then you can vote.
Right.
But the thing is, when you have California and New York and Democrat-run cities saying we'll give you free housing, free healthcare, free everything if you come in, like that's what they're doing in these cities, and the
Yeah.
taxpayers are paying for that. But when that's going on, of course they're going to do what they want them to do. So Lydia, do you think that's going to be an issue, or do you think it's not as like? What is your opinion on it? I guess.
I mean, I definitely think that is an issue, especially when they entice people with all that. They're like, "Oh, we can give you this and this," and I know, New
Who
York,
doesn't like free stuff? Like,
right? Who doesn't like free stuff? But free is never always free. It's
exactly, it's
never
not actually
entirely
free.
free. Someone else is paying for it.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I definitely think that's going to be a huge issue because that's going to draw people in even more. And obviously, they're going to vote for the person that gave them all these benefits. They're going to be like, "Oh, well, yeah, I don't really care what other policies, but
Like
but
tit
she's
for
giving me
tat. If you do that for me, I'll do that for you. Like that's kind of what we're
exact."
gonna see.
Yeah, and so that's so dangerous for us, especially. Yeah, and I cannot believe that it is even a debate as far as like how they're even allowed to be voting, and like this is a privilege that you have as an American citizen that you've been brought in, or like even legal immigrants. That's great if you're able to vote this election, and you're finally like, in the country legally. And I love that. That's so great. But they're the legal immigrants. I mean, they're ruining it for people. They really are.
Yeah, that's why this election. I mean, it's a really pivotal point because if that gets allowed this time, if something like that is allowed, then how are we ever gonna have any, um, I guess like hope for the next elections if that happens in one of them? We see in Venezuela like they've rigged that one, so it's scary to think about ours being that close and making sure that doesn't happen. But something on the ballot, since we're talking about it already, is amendments, especially in Florida. We three live in Florida, and there's this similar amendment is in like 7 different states, but Florida's one of them, and it's Amendment 4. And this is probably the most important one for me. I'm a Christian and I'm a pro life advocate, and this amendment would allow no restrictions to late term abortions, uh, and it would also allow abortion to be legal for minors without parental consent. So why should we vote against this, or what are your both of your opinions on what you're gonna do when you have that on your ballot? Fadana, go ahead.
Well, to be honest with you, it's definitely going to be a no for me. And when you think of women's right, when a woman is born, we're obviously born with rights. The only rights that they want to take away is killing the baby. That's basically it. And they're trying to call it healthcare. That's not really a right. Like, make it make sense, people. So it's definitely going to have to be a no for me because I'm not, one, as a Christian, I'm not trying to have blood on my hands. Like, to give an okay for someone who decided, you know what, they're going to hook up with somebody and don't want to, take full
Yeah,
responsibility
no
for the choices
responsibility.
that their actions. Exactly. And so I feel like this generation, they're so entitled and no one want to take responsibility for their wrongdoing. They just want to do whatever it is that they want to do. Like, who's holding these people
That's a
accountable?
good point. That's really true. We feel like in our country right now, in this generation, I feel like there's a lot of young people who are saying, "Well, this it's our we get to do whatever we want, so why would this be, you know?" And they don't like to look at the consequences. They just think that they can do whatever they want. But Lydia, what are your like thoughts about this amendment in general?
Well, yeah, I mean, I like what you said. I mean, I think young people, I mean, I'm also a young person, but we have that kind of invincible mentality, like, oh, I can do whatever
Yeah,
and sleep with whoever, and I don't reap the consequences. But I think obviously I'm voting no against this amendment, hard no. But I think it's really concerning as far as the minor aspect of
yeah,
that.
it would be the
Like,
only surgery in Florida that a minor could perform without parental consent.
that's insane for that to be the surgery
It's
is
weird.
crazy for parents to have no input because then they would make the argument, oh, but that's like still the child's body like that, but it's not their body. And so I think, I mean, that's
It's
scary in
not
and of
woman's
itself.
right. It's
No,
not. Well,
Well,
it's not
and
healthcare.
this is how they're
no.
the yes on Florida people. I've seen so many ads. I've seen no ads for no. Like it's kind of concerning because there's so much of the other side being on the media everywhere. But
Yeah.
one thing they do is they say Florida's extreme abortion ban. This is taking away your rights as a woman. And I'm like, what right? I just can't even like understand. Like I get what they're trying to tell them, but as a woman, like you guys are both women, so Fadana, what does that mean?
That means that at the healthcare, it's killing a baby. That's
Yeah,
basically what woman right is. We all know women have rights. Like
it's
that's a
not their
no
body though.
brainer.
So why do they think that's
Yeah,
their right?
it's the rhetoric that they try to use,
Yeah,
even nowadays they'll be like, oh, don't be woke, like they don't want you to realize what's really happening, like just all these terminology that they use nowadays to try to deflect the reality of what they're trying to propose to you,
yeah.
so then that way you won't really question it, so they'll use all these terminology to try to trick you up. And that's basically why they're saying woman's right. We all know women have rights. It should be baby's
Yeah,
rights.
no one's
At
no
this
one's
point,
trying to
just
take
change it
away
to
women's
that.
rights.
Change
No,
it to the baby right. What's the baby rights?
Yeah, what's the rights of the
baby,
person who can't
baby can't speak
decide?
for himself.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, and the Constitution says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life is the first thing it mentions. That means that it protects any life, not just because you're in the womb. Doesn't mean you don't get that right. You do. You're a human being. And I mean, I'm gonna tell you guys something personal. My mom told me is she knew what gender my little sister was at 9 weeks. Like
Wow.
that's when a baby is actually forming. But with with this amendment, if it were to pass, there will be no restriction to any late term abortion. You if you decide for any reason, it says for any reason, then you could decide to terminate a baby, and that's just sad. Like I feel like that's a moral thing. Like how could you look at that and not feel like you're doing something wrong? Like Lydia, what do you say to that?
Well, I would say, I mean, it's so, because people say that, like, even like late term abortions, like, they're like, oh, but those don't happen anyways. I mean, Kamala herself claimed that it doesn't happen, even though, yes, okay, it doesn't happen as often as it does with, like, varying weeks as far as how far along the baby is, but they still happen that late. And why else would an amendment be wanting to be passed that says
Exactly.
this? I mean, that just already like should be a red flag for people that, think that this isn't happening, because it very much is. And it's absolutely heartbreaking, because I mean, it's like a baby that could literally be saved, almost like a full-term child. I mean, they could be born, but they let them die in the name of abortion. But it's the thing is, like, that child could seriously survive on its own. And it could be put up for adoption. Like, there's so many solutions
That's
here.
something that yeah we as especially as Christians, their church should be a very like a first stop for people to
Yeah.
go to when
Yeah.
they're thinking about having an abortion,
It
because
should be the
yeah,
lighthouse.
yeah, a lighthouse, exactly. Because if they had the option and I guess the support, maybe they wouldn't feel as like intrigued to go and get an abortion. But the thing is, if it's legal all the way, that's just giving them the go ahead to do it.
Yeah.
So, Fadana, the next point I want to bring up is, as a Christian, we're all Christians here. As a point of view from a Christian, why should people vote no on this if they are a Christian?
I mean, to be honest with you, um, I would honestly make Christians think like, what would Jesus do? Like that should be like their way of thinking and navigating through the situation, to be honest with you, just like the little bracelet, what would Jesus
Yes,
do? Like honestly, like Jesus would not want these babies to be killed. Like like Jesus would say this is not woman's rights, like it's not woman's health either. The fact that they're trying to twist it, and that's what the enemy does, is he twists things to make it out to be something that it's not. Like if people really read the amendment 4 that they're trying to pass here, it's really for these minors to go in and not get the parents' consent to abort the baby. That's basically what it is. Like for the parents to
Mhm.
never know that, like, hey, there was a possibility I could have become a grandparent, but your minor child just went behind your back and did this.
that's
Like they don't
sad.
want the parents to know anything at all. And so that's the reason why they're being very discreet about it. Even the amendment 4, the way it's written, is very vague.
Way too
Um,
general.
it's just very, very vague, and people can't. And when you write something that's very, very vague, because you want that vote, that big vote, that you want people to say, you know what, I don't really understand this. Maybe this is a good thing. Let me just vote on it. But
Exactly.
people aren't going to really do their research, and it's up to us to speak up and go out in the community and let people know, hey, don't vote doing this.
Yeah.
On Saturday, matter of fact, tomorrow we're going to be waving the flags, and I'm sure there's going to be people that are going to be in the community coming around, and this is a great way to talk to them and inform them about
Yeah.
these different amendments that they have. They even want to pass marijuana here. Like they want to legalize it here and turn it into Colorado or California. Like I don't want to go out to Florida like smelling weed when I'm walking down the streets. Like I don't want our state to turn into Colorado. Like
Yeah,
we're good
we
over
have to look
here,
at
you
why people
know?
move to Florida, you know? Why do people move to Florida and out of these Democrat states to a Republican run state? Because we have good policies. That's the whole thing. It's not even about like the people. It's about the policies, and we have a good governor
Crazy.
that's pushing this stuff. But I mean, this amendment is a money grab. It's a whole thing from this organization that wants to get as much money as they can from this. And Fadani, you nailed it. You said that Satan will try to make things look good, and that's everything in the world right now. If you think about it, is the enemy trying to twist the truth into the lie and the lie into the truth. Like that's what I'm seeing
He's
everywhere.
a good deceiver.
Yeah, he is, and that even from the beginning, that's how the fall happened. So, Lydia, as a Christian, what do you think about this amendment?
Well, I would piggyback on what Fadana said. I mean, the enemy does come to steal, kill, and destroy. Like that is his motive. He's prowling around like a lion, like waiting for someone to devour. I mean, this is
Exactly.
entirely. I mean, this is life we're talking about, and it definitely, I would say, it definitely is a money grab. For organizations, especially like you look at even Planned Parenthood.
Yeah,
Like you
you know
just
how
look at,
much money they're getting out of this stuff? It's
oh,
insane.
it's sick. It's
And
so
then they
sick.
want to claim Black Lives Matter, but predominantly 80% of these Planned Parenthood are put in predominantly Black
On
neighborhoods because
purpose.
a lot of
Yeah,
African American women are going to go in there and
totally.
abort their babies. So
Yes.
basically, you're making money off Black women, their child that they could have possibly birthed. But no, let's just place Planned Parenthood here in this neighborhood,
It's
and then these
strategic.
people are just gonna go more and more and kill themselves. You don't really care about Black
Why
lives.
is it called Planned Parenthood if they literally kill the babies before they can? That doesn't make
Well,
sense. That
and these
what?
people that are like, they're sleeping around. I mean, that's not planned, obviously.
And
And
that
it's like,
you do, and you have the choice there though. Like that's my thing. It's like you are
Yeah,
making the choice. No one is taking away your right as a woman. It's just you made the
yes,
choice before,
yes, and
and
you
then if
knew what could happen.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I mean, what I always look at it is even if you do get pregnant, is God takes what the enemy meant for evil and turns it for good. So no matter what,
come
like
on.
God will make something good out
Yes.
of it. So we gotta look at it from
Preach
that
it,
point of
Camden.
view. I mean, come on.
That was
good
so good.
stuff.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So, I mean, this amendment is extremely important to save lives, especially
Yeah.
if you're in Florida or one of these states that have it on the ballot. So, look at your ballot. And, guys, just as a last little call, what should Florida voters do on this ballot? Yes or no on this amendment?
Definitely a no.
No,
Vote
Like
no.
vote
no.
no. There's four things. I think they have five amendments that they're trying to pass, and majority of them are no. There's only one that I think it's a yes, and I think it's regarding the fishing thing that they want to pass and stuff, that amendment or whatever. But other than that, the others are definitely big no's, because
Yeah,
Lord know if people vote yes on these things, what our state is going to turn into. Like people come here to relax, to enjoy the beauty of Florida, and the fact that they want to change the environment, and even the minors. Like, come on, I feel like sex education should be something that the parents teaches at home, and
Yeah,
and promiscuity is becoming something that is so huge here, in our country, and minors need to take responsibility and wake up and know that, okay, like if you go around sleeping with someone, there's consequences to every decision that you make.
absolutely.
yeah.
And my last call is like, if you move to Florida, remember why you moved there. Don't change it.
Exactly.
If you
Don't enter
like
into a
it,
swing state.
yeah,
No.
exactly. We don't want that. If we like how it is here, then we should keep it like that. So remember, if you do that, look at the whole ballot with that perspective. Like, why did I move here? What's gonna change? keep it like that. So thank you guys for coming on the episode today. We had a great conversation. And guys, just get out and vote. Even if you are
Yes.
doing early voting or in person, just
Vote.
vote for
Yeah,
what you
vote.
believe will be the best decision going into this election. So thank you guys for coming. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. We got episodes every Sunday evening, and we'll be back next week with another one. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.